Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are connecting from today. Happy Monday, everybody. If it's still Monday for you, happy Monday, everybody. Thank you so much for being part of our Hacking HR live chat series. I started this series as part of our conversations that we wanted to have with brilliant authors in the Hacking HR community so that they could share also their insights, their research, their ideas, their recommendations with all of us in this Hacking HR community. I am hoping that you have been tuning in to the previous live chats that we've had as well. But if you have missed any of them, do not worry because we are all of them will are being recorded and we are sharing them on our website hackinghr.io. Go there, click on live chat, and you will find all of the previous sessions that we've had as part of this Hacking HR live chat series. For those of you who are connected live right now, thank you so much for doing so. Whether you are connected on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube, thank you so much for being part of this series. Please let us know where in the world you are connecting from today. It will be awesome to know where everybody is. If you have any questions, any comments, any insights during this conversation, something that you want to bring up to our attention, please make sure that you are posting it in the chat. If you are watching this as a replay, as a recorded video, well, thank you so much for doing so. I am hoping that you go and check out the rest of the chats that we have because they are all really, really awesome. This month, May, and today is May the 29th, so almost the end of the month. And I don't even know how this happened. It went by so quickly, and now we're almost in June. But this month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month. And of course, throughout the entire year, we post a lot of content and we have a lot of conversations about mental health. However, this month, we have dedicated a lot of energy, a lot of love and passion and work to deliver a lot of content about all things related to mental health. Most of our Hacking HR live chat conversations have been about mental health. Our Hacking HR May series was about mental health, and most of the content that we posted on our community on LinkedIn and in our different channels has been about mental health. We will continue to do so, but this was in celebration and observance of this Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm hoping that you once again go back to some of the pieces of the content that we have posted over this past 29 days, and you check out all the awesome insights that we have shared with the community. So today we will continue to talk about mental health, and we're going to be talking about Bold Move, a 3-step plan to transform anxiety into power. And I am super excited to welcome Dr. Luana to the screen with me. Good morning, Dr. Luana. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me, Enrique. And I see we have community from all over the world. How fun to be here with you guys.
Yeah, it's awesome to always have people from different places in the world and to hear their perspectives about things that I think all of us are dealing with, regardless of where we are. But super excited to have you here with me. Thank you so much. And Dr. Luana, for those of for our community, the people that are connected in here today who don't know you, I would love for you to please introduce yourself. Let us know more about who you are, the work you've done, where you're connecting from, anything that you want to share with me and, of course, with our community.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here on this Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm originally from Brazil. I came to the US when I was about 18. Growing up in Brazil was tough. My mom had a lot of domestic violence and we had a lot of trauma at home. But eventually I learned that to be bold is not to be fearless. To be bold is to go towards the things that matter the most for us. And so I made the journey from Brazil to the United States. Today, I'm associate professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. And I dedicate a lot of my resources, my research, my time to really taking the 3 skills that I talk about in this book and train paraprofessionals, train companies, train organizations on how to really rewire our brain, how to understand what's happening for us, and how to move towards the things that matter the most. And that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about bringing skills for as many people as possible.
Well, that is fantastic. By the way, we come from neighboring countries. I am originally from Venezuela, so we share a massive border between Venezuela and Brazil. So, Dr. Luana, thank you so much once again for being here. And now let's talk a little bit about bold move. And I know we are going to dig deeper into sort of each of the skills that you talk about in the book. But what is the bottom line of the book? What are the core tenets of bold move?
So, bold move is really about psychological avoidance. Psychological avoidance is anything that we do to make us feel momentarily better, but keeps us stuck long term. So, for
Mm,
example, in the workplace, if you are afraid of conflict and you get really anxious about talking to somebody about a topic that's uncomfortable, for example, most of us, when we get that anxiety, that discomfort, we tend to walk away from things. And the problem is, psychological avoidance only keeps us stuck because conflict only grows. It doesn't go away, it doesn't have legs. And so people really get stuck. And so the main premise of the book, before we even talk about skills, is this idea that the real enemy that all of us are fighting is not anxiety. And I have to share with you guys, I grew up as an anxious person, so I hate anxiety myself. But anxiety is not what keeps us stuck, is what we do when we are anxious that keeps us stuck. And if what we do is walk away from difficult conversations, I've worked with a lot of people, for example, that are in situations that they do really well at work, but they're afraid of asking for a raise. And so they
mm.
continue to stay stuck. And the book talks about very different types of psychological avoidance.
Oh, that is fantastic. And what is the bold move? What is the bold move that we make to get unstuck, to get out of that cycle?
So, a bold move, really, in my mind, is any step towards the things that matter most. So, in the book, I talk about the idea that values are really important. Values being the things that matter the most to us, our inner compass. So, family, ambition, religion, whatever the value is. And a bold move is to make steps towards those things, regardless of the anxiety. And it doesn't have to be a big step, it could be a little step. I just had somebody reach out to me saying, I made a bold move today. She was a little anxious about driving, and her bold move was just
Mm.
get behind the wheels and drive. And so, really, is taking a step towards the things that matter most. That to me is a bold life.
Is it bold because we are either not used to taking those steps or because they really take us out of what we call the comfort zone? Is that what these moves are bold?
That's exactly right. So I believe a good life is a life that we are comfortably uncomfortable. And so, because if you're completely comfortable, like I was completely comfortable yesterday, I was playing in the yard with my 5-year-old. And sometimes, if you're completely uncomfortable, we are frozen. We're on fight, flight, or freeze, and we can't do anything. So, to be bold, you're in that zone that you're out of your comfort zone, but it's mission aligned. It's because it matters to you. That's why you're going towards that discomfort.
Mm. Now, how do we condition ourselves to take those bold moves? And particularly, let me ask you about one kind of people. There are people who have taken bold moves in their lives, and what they have found in the territory of bold moves is more anxiety, maybe more stress, more pressure, sometimes failure. And what they may think to themselves is like, why the heck am I even here? Let me just go back to retreat back to what's comfortable, to what's known, familiar, because getting into this territory, it's not working out for me. So what is your message to them?
Mhm. Well, there's two things that you're talking about there, Enrique. They're really sort of interesting. The first one is the narratives of what we say to ourselves,
Mm,
right? So you're talking about somebody that made a bold move, but now they have a narrative that discomfort is bad, that what they're saying to themselves. And so now their brain is hearing that being uncomfortable is a bad thing, which then makes them feel more uncomfortable. So
mm,
the first step is really shifting our perspective. So one of the skills I talk about in the book is this idea that our brain's talking to us all the time. And we tend to sort of say mean things to ourselves, right?
yeah.
We talk to ourselves in ways that like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this, or I'm unlovable. Other people are better than I am. And that narrative gets us stuck. So if you made a bold move and now you are stuck on negative thoughts, it's really important to shift your perspective. And here's how you can do it. Really pause for a second. Look at the thoughts that you're saying to yourself. For me, for example, growing up with a lot of adversity, I had this narrative for many years that I'm not enough. So even when something good would happen in my career, for example, I'd get a paper accepted, my brain would take that information and make into like, well, it got accepted because other people are smart. I'm not smart enough.
Mm,
And so I had to work really hard to shift my perspective and be able to say to myself, no, I am good just as I am. Right. So for any of you listening right now, if you're stuck on negative thoughts, it's really important to learn to talk to yourself as if you are your own best friend. Because I don't know about you, Enrique, but I tend to talk to my friends a lot nicer than I talk to myself
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am fully aware of that, and it happens to me as well, right? I see, and I console other people, and I lift them up, and I tell them, how great they are because they truly are. And when I think about my own thoughts, which by the way, I'm aware of it. When I think about it, it's like, why am I talking to me like this? Why am I saying all these awful things to myself? Right? I don't behave this way with my friend. Why am I doing it to myself?
That's exactly right. Because see, our brain likes to conserve energy.
Yeah.
And so in many ways, our brain just jumps to a conclusion based on our history, based on things that happened before. Maybe we had a bad event at work, and then we get stuck in these narratives. And the problem is, if what we say to ourselves is arbitrary anyhow, might as well be nice to ourselves like we are to our friends. And that
Yeah.
really goes a long way.
And that requires, and this is a question for you, Dr. Luana, a couple of things that come to my mind. Number one, of course, awareness that that's what we're doing to ourselves. But number two, not just awareness, but also the realization that what we're actually telling ourselves is a negative story, because we may have been stuck in that cycle for so long that now we think that what we tell to ourselves, that's just normal. That's just the way things are. Right. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not enough. I've been telling this to myself for 30 years. And at some point I'm gonna kind of like realize, well, it's normal to tell to myself that I'm not enough, right? Because that's what I've been
Mhm.
telling to myself for 30 years. How do we even break out of that cycle?
That is such an insightful question. You're so right. So, the first thing is thoughts are not facts. Let me say that
Mm,
again. Thoughts are not facts. We may be saying to ourselves all the time, but it would just be if I was talking to my friend and my friend said it was an associate professor at Harvard Medical School, that and not being smart don't go together, right?
mm,
Outside of my head, I can see that. And so to change this, you're right that we have to have some level of insight. And this is the superpower I think we all have, and that most of us don't use, the ability to pause.
mm,
Whenever that narrative starts in our brain, it's really important to just pause. And there's a technique in cognitive behavior therapy that we use that's really powerful. Write down your thoughts, like literally
mhm,
just write down your thoughts, because what you're doing is you're activating your thinking brain. You're getting out of that emotional brain. So you're getting control over your brain again. And by pausing, now we're creating a little bit of a gap between our thoughts and our actions. And we actually can choose then to approach instead of avoiding. And
mm.
that is how we get unstuck from just the narrative of the brain.
Oh, that is fantastic. And I am actually going to use this as a segue because I would love for you to talk about the three most powerful skills that you talk about in Bold Moves. So if you can develop them for our audience.
Absolutely. So, whenever we're stuck, we can be stuck in one of three ways, either by what we're saying to ourselves, like we're talking about, feeling like saying to myself, I'm not enough. Sometimes we're stuck because of our emotions. We get so anxious, we get panicky. And sometimes you're just stuck avoiding. And there's a skill for each one of those. So, if you are stuck on your thinking and you notice that you're talking to yourself in a really negative way, the skill to address this is shift. Shift is designed to widen our perspective, to change the narrative in our brain. I first learned this from my grandmother. Whenever I get anxious in Brazil, and at this one point when I was 15, that I moved in with her to a big city, and I became terrified of strangers. I thought everybody's going to make fun of me, that they're not going to like me. And my grandmother would say to me, is there another way to look at this scenario? Are people really, really gonna laugh at you or be scared? And so, really shifting is changing the narrative in your brain. Now, some of us get stuck because we are avoiding all the time. We're just moving away, right? We don't ask for that raise. We don't go on that date. We don't tell our partners that we're upset at them. And the opposite
Mm,
of avoidance is what I call opposite action. To approach is to go towards discomfort. But Enrique, you said something important. Sometimes we go all or nothing in approach, and we go, I've never addressed conflict, and now I'm going to conflict and the CEO of the company, for example. That's too much. We need to train our brain to approach slowly so that we can
mm,
overcome discomfort. And then finally, the last skill is align. And I actually talked about this a little bit in the beginning. Aligning is a life that is aligning daily actions with values. Let me give everybody a tip on this one because I do this every week. On Sunday, I looked at my calendar, and right now I have three values that are really important to me. I care about impact on my work, I care about family, and I care about health. And those are the three values that I am living my life by. And so on Sunday, I pull up my calendar and I look at it and I go, am I aligning my actions to those values? For example, yesterday, I took the entire day off to spend with my son because today, even though it's a holiday, I'll start my day with you, Enrique. And so yesterday, I focused on family. Today, I'm focusing on impact by being with you all here. And what we know scientifically is when we align our values with our actions, we have less stress, we have less anxiety, we just feel better.
Oh, that is, I am thinking about the three skills: shift, approach, and align. And I am thinking about this word is coming to my mind as you're explaining this, is the word fear. And I know it's a negative word, right? Or it could be a negative word, but I would love to ask you sort of how fear plays a role in this. And I ask you this question because you mentioned one example, right? I mean, if you can approach instead of to get stuck, you have to approach situations instead of avoiding them, right? And that means that you will want to, for example, approach a difficult conversation with your boss, but maybe in the 25 different similar experiences that you had in the past, when you did that, something wrong happened. So you are
Mhm.
afraid now of approaching that. So that you have fear to do what you know you gotta do. So how does fear play a role when you try to implement these three skills?
Yeah. Well, being bold is not being fearless. So if you're going
Yeah,
to
you
be
said that at the
bold,
beginning. Yeah.
there's going to be some fear. But let's separate for everybody here because I think it's really important. There's real fear, right? If there's a lion in front of you, if there is a poison snake, if an ambulance is coming down the street about to hit your kid, those are moments of real fear. And those are moments where our fight, flight, or freeze response is necessary. Now, the problem is you're describing what I call perceived fear. That your brain is equating being rejected by somebody or having a challenging conversation that didn't go well as real fear. And
Mm.
so then what happens is the brain is super smart, right? It has two functions. It predicts and protects. And but it doesn't differentiate real danger for perceived danger. And so sometimes the experience that we have of this anxiety and fear is in response to a negative comment by a coworker, for example. And that fear, if we actually approach it, we can actually overcome it because it's perceived fear. And if you go at it again and again, eventually your brain goes, okay, now it's not, it's not without any fear. So I won't lie to anybody here. Every moment that I take a bold move myself, and I've been doing this my whole life, the big ones, it still scare me, right?
Yeah.
But there has to be a reason why you're doing it. I don't believe you should just experience anxiety or fear for no good reason. It has to be something meaningful to you. That's why I talk a lot about values because I only go towards fear and a perceived fear when it's something that really matters. And then my brain goes, okay, I can handle this. And,
Is
and
it?
one last thing I'll say about
Yeah.
that is, you talked about this twice again. I want to address this. We will fail.
Yeah.
There's no life without failure.
Yeah.
And I just like failing fast so I can learn and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, is this requires it seems to me it requires a lot of intentionality, right? Because it's behaving, is engaging in practices that are not part of what we have done, even if they were natural to us. Somehow we forgot about them, after years of conditioning in school and work to do things differently, to just be stuck, to avoid conflict, to avoid difficult conversations, to think that anxiety, it's the way it is. It's the normal kind of a state or state. And now we have to engage in more intentional practices to get out of these cycles, negative cycles, and to get unstuck. And it sounds to me that it's a lot of hard work. So how do you tell people, well, yes, it is work to stay where you are, and it's going to be harder work to get out of it? So what do you tell them when maybe they raise this challenge to you of not wanting to get that kind of work done, or them thinking, isn't this supposed to be for the best. So why does it feel that it's more work?
Yeah. The same way we can't build a six pack by going to the gym once a year,
Yeah.
we can't build a bold brain by just one day exercising our brain. It's just that's it. But it's so fun because you're right. Like we forgot our brain is an organ that needs exercise the same way that our physical body needs
Yeah.
exercise. And so you're right. It takes work, right? But the question that I say is, well, if where you are is working for you, then be my guest. But what I've seen in my work in the last 25 years in Hiki is that what happens is people either go in transition or they made to transition. I had a great friend
Mm.
at a job that she hated. Okay. She's hated her job. She told me things like, I just wish they'd fire me. Then one day they fired her.
Mm.
Right. And so now she has even more challenge to get a new job because she didn't face the reality, and the reality was painful. She hated her job, and there's lots of things that led to her being fired, but the reality is she wasn't facing her day to day. She was miserable.
Yeah.
I've seen this in relationships. People stay in marriages when they know no longer works for them. And so eventually somebody leaves and then you're forced to transition. And so what I say to all of us is this: if it's working and you're thriving, stay where you are. If you're not, it's time to take control over your life, make your own bold move, and don't go all or nothing. Build that six pack slowly. It takes time.
It does. And now I am thinking about, we're talking, part of our conversation is about anxiety, right? It's transforming anxiety into power. And I would want to ask you what that power means, but I will do that at the end. But what I want to ask you now is this: if it feels anxious to be where we are and to be stuck where we are, could it feel also anxious, for example, to try something new that we don't know where it's going to take us, right? It is like the person that you mentioned at the beginning. I get anxiety from driving, and then that person is sitting behind the wheel and is going to start driving. But I don't know if is she getting more anxious by not knowing if she's going to have an accident or if she's going to end up in the place that she wants to go to? Wouldn't it be easier for her just to stay at home and not drive at all?
Absolutely. It is much easier to stay in your comfort zone in terms of just discomfort in general.
Mm.
But what are the consequences, right? What I've seen for people in the case of driving, for example, is, I had a person I worked with, a client once, that she was so anxious that she could only drive by making right turns. And so it took her an hour and a half to get to work because she was so terrified, right? And she was losing time with her kids. She was losing time with her family. So staying put is comfortable, but what I've seen, and you're talking a lot about transitions, really,
Yeah.
right? And the way I think about transitions is this: there's this journey that you want to go on, right? And there's this boat. Imagine there's a boat that's about to leave, and you don't know where it's going to lead you, but it's exciting. It's the new, but it's also scary. And here's
Yeah.
the shore. And what I see is people holding on literally to the shore, and they're holding on to these new possibilities. And they just feel stuck and they start to get stretched thin. They sleep goes, their irritability, they worry a lot, they overeat or overdrink. And so my suggestion is, if you're not sure, let go and start swimming.
Yeah.
No one I've ever worked with in my life, including myself, knows exactly the end of our journey. What we
Yeah.
know is we need to be doing a value-driven journey, but the outcome, I don't have a magic wand. I don't think you do either. So we don't know where we're going to end up. But at least for me, the discomfort of a life well lived that's value driven is a lot better than the discomfort of not changing.
Yeah. And it feels a little bit like exploring opportunities and discovering possibilities with an open mind about what the outcome could look like, right? I feel I'm hearing a lot of, it's not just what you become, it's the becoming, right? It is that journey.
That is so astute of you. That's absolutely right. It's the journey, right? And it's that today. It's today, not tomorrow, not yesterday. In the today, are you living your best life? In the
Yeah.
today, are you doing the things that you feel are the best for you and those you love? And if you are, then discomfort becomes less and less.
Yeah. You know what scares me though is that when you look around, and I don't know if this happens to you, but it certainly happens to me, because now we live, when we are in social media, I see Dr. Luana smiling all the time and happy all the, and I'm just using this as an example, right?
Hmm.
Happy all the time. And what I'm thinking is like, wow, Dr. Luana never has a problem, right? And it seems that her life is perfect. And that's just, I see that, and I see that in everybody, right?
Hmm.
I go to social media and everybody's smiling and everybody seems to be doing fine. And everybody is just like, celebrating something and having fun with the family. And I think we are fooling ourselves when we don't project the image that life is not just that things are hard. And when you don't know the outcome, there may be failure. And you said it before, it's hard work. Some things will not go anywhere and we're going to have to backtrack and go in a different direction. But we don't see that in social media around us. And I don't know if that creates so much more pressure on us to try to fake that life that is not real.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the brain compares by nature, and we
Yeah.
are always comparing. Unfortunately, research shows that we tend to compare up, not down. And so,
Yeah.
like, everybody looks like they're doing better. And I think that's
Yeah.
why it's important to like be real. That's why in conversations like this, I often talk about my own anxiety. It is not
Yeah.
all perfect, right? When I was going in with you and Hiki, my audio wasn't working. I was literally having a panic. I called my husband and nothing, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna mess this up." My brain like was screaming. And I had to settle myself. And you were so kind that like helped me settle before we went live. But our brains, for everyone, there's always something that's uncomfortable. There's
Yeah.
always a narrative. And, yesterday, just sharing an example, Dan Harris endorsed my book and he's lovely. And yesterday he posted on Twitter how he was having panic attacks and how my book helped. And I was so thankful that he was real with people, because I think all of us need to have moments that we're just vulnerable and say, you know what you see is not everything.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing, last thing I'll say about this is take some time off from social media. I do it. Like yesterday, I was like, just
you
otherwise we're really just creating more harm.
Yeah, well, you got to do it. I mean, otherwise, it's honestly, at least, I got off Twitter a long time ago. It was sickening to me, just to see all, negative messages all about politics, and I'm like, there's something to life that is much better than this, and I just can't believe the damage that we're causing ourselves for being connected all the time and being connected to that, being connected to sometimes what feels to be very fake, right? To
Mhm.
something where we don't see, we see the end result of somebody having gone through a journey, but we don't see what their journey was.
Yeah.
And because that end result seems to be so cool, we think that they are flawless, that they haven't, infallible, and that they are perfect. And then we reflect about that and our own lives, and we're like, man, I suck, because how am I not there yet? And that's hard.
100%. So hard. I mean, this is why, when I set to write this book, I wanted to write it because I felt like the world was hurting. And there were skills
Yeah.
that I learned first from my grandmother. And then in graduate school, I was like, oh my God, there's science behind what my grandmother was teaching me. And so I wanted to write this book, but like the first chapter is, am I enough? And I'll tell you, like every day that this book is out in the world, it's just been out for a week now. And I'm terrified that people are not going to like it. Every
Mm.
morning, my brain says to me, oh my God, you wrote this book and people are going to hate it. And every morning, I have to take my brain to the gym, the mental gym, and go, wait a minute, why did you write this book? It doesn't matter what people think about the book. What matters is that you have a story that you want to share and you want to help people.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go away, right? And so I
Yeah.
think you're right that we need to be aware and have that pause so that we can be in control of our own brain.
Yeah. Now, how do we put that question of am I enough in the context of, for example, yes, however, I also want to grow. So I want to be 0.1% better tomorrow, and I want to be 0.1% better the next day, but I'm still enough. But I
Mhm.
want to accept uh, the reality that tells me I can achieve more, I can become more, I can be more, in the direction of my values, like you said before. So how do we put that context of that question of am I enough in the context of yes, but I also want to grow?
Yeah. So, for the beginning of my career, ambition was my value. And I was
Mhm.
like, all on. I was going to become associate professor at Harvard no matter what. And I wrote papers and I wrote grants. And eventually, about 2 years ago, I hit a wall. Like,
Mm.
there's this moment that I write in the book that I thought I was having a stroke. I was so
Wow.
anxious. My face got numb. In the end, it turned out to be a severe migraine. But I thought I was having a stroke. I really did. And it was because I was no longer living a life in line with values. I was doing the things that the world told me that I believe the world wanted me to do, but they no longer fed me. And so
Yeah.
that was feeding this I'm not enough. And so once I hit that wall, I really had to reevaluate my life. And I realized that what I cared about was impact. And I wanted to be better. I wanted to be bigger, but I wanted to have an impact in the world by bringing mental health down globally. And so then I now can honestly say to you, I wake up and I feel like I'm enough. And yeah, I want to drive impact. And so I'll do whatever it takes to do that. But because it's no longer a mismatch on my values, I can do both and continue to pursue, what I want next, like being here with you today.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that we so many people, by the way, including myself, sometimes, we get stuck in the second part of the question, right? It is, what else do I need to do that I'm not doing, and not in the first part, which is I am doing enough. I am already
Yeah.
doing something that is cool. I'm sharing the story. I'm inspiring people. I build this community, and here I am on a holiday Monday morning. It's pretty early for me doing this, but then I think, all right, that's not enough. I gotta do the million other things, and what I'm thinking about is that maybe even if I do the other million things at the end of the journey, I'm gonna think that I'm not doing enough either. So it's just hard, right? It's just hard to say I am doing enough. I am enough, even if I acknowledge that the journey ahead of me is still long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you're sharing because I think it's really important for people to see. I mean, I was so impressed by everything you built this morning when I was checking out your stuff. I was like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to meet you." It's like it's incredible. But the brain always wants more. And I think the way to do it is just say to ourselves, in this moment, this is enough, right? And there's
Mm.
a million other things you're gonna do. But in this moment, I mean, like just this conversation, I can see how many comments are coming through, and people from all over the world are here for you,
Yeah.
and Hiki. Like you're more than enough.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And one thing that I observed, particularly over the past 3 years since the pandemic, is, and you said it before, a lot of people reevaluating their lives, right, and rethinking, is this all I want to do? And something happens to me, Luana, that I want to tell you about. I was living in Washington D.C. before, a city where very beautiful city, but where everybody or most people that I know about, it feels that their life is work, and then they move to this small town right in the middle of the largest ponderosa pine forest in the world, and people here. What my feeling is that all they want to do is spend time outdoors, and that work is only a means to be able to do that, to buy the kayak, to buy the bike, to buy the climbing equipment, like for myself too. And I'm thinking, is it all about work? And what happened over the past 3 years is that now there's a collective realization that is not just all about work. It's not just about achieving and making money and succeeding by the terms of society. There's more to life than that. And I think that realization is making also people a little bit anxious about discovering what that thing is for them and how they can make it happen.
You are so right. So my next book I'm going to write is on transitions
Mm,
because the world has had this seismic transition in values,
yeah,
but no one is
yeah,
talking about the fact that the values you had pre-pandemic are no longer the values that fit your life. And
yeah,
people in many ways that continue to do what they always did because that's what they do.
yeah,
And they're not facing the reality like I hear so much now, people still want to work from home and companies are forcing them back. And they're like,
yeah,
well, I don't
yeah,
wanna do that. And
yeah,
so but people are scared of change. People are scared of transitions. And so they're holding on to that old as like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I did it myself. I just shared that story and it nearly killed me. And so
yeah,
if anybody's listening to us and they are terrified of change, you can change in two ways in life. One is you can choose to change. They're going to be discomfort, and you're going to have to explore your values and think about what's next. Or life will force you to change, like my
yeah,
friend who got fired. right? And I hear, Enrique, that you made a bold move to a
Yeah.
small town, and I can see in your face that you're happy.
Very happy.
I mean, look at the photos behind you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're present,
Yeah.
and and I'm sure there was discomfort in the
Yeah.
move. It's not easy to settle in a new place, but I bet you're happier.
Yeah, yeah. No, I am, and unfortunately for me, I was again lucky and fortunate enough that I was able to choose that change, that I was able to make that decision myself, right? And it was tough, and it was, I left a lot of things behind, including a well-paying job for something that I'm not sure if it's gonna work, but you know what? I think I have to embrace a different value for my life. It's not just about work. It's not just about the making of the money. That to me is not success anymore. I want to be healthy. I want to be present for others. I want to be a tool that other people use to grow and to heal from the many things that are impacting their mental health. And that's what I'm doing. Again, not easy every day, but I'm finding more joy in this than in anything that I did in the past. So that's exciting to me.
I'm with you. I mean, I just gave up my big academic career. I went to my chief and said, "Listen, I'm not writing grants anymore. I don't want to just be chasing things. I want to be out there changing the world." And like you, I'm scared, right? And
Yeah,
it's everything I did before had a playbook, and I knew what the playbook
yeah,
was. You write this many grants, you get this many grants, then you write this many papers, and then you write this more. I knew what the playbook is. Now I don't know the playbook anymore. And so there's a lot of discomfort, right? But the reality is the only certainty we really have is uncertainty. None
yeah,
of us know what's going to happen this afternoon. We like to pretend we do. And
yeah,
so if uncertainty is the only certain, then a value driven life is a much better life.
yeah. And whenever I think about not knowing the outcome, one of the things that excites me about that fact, because we don't know the end of the journey. We don't know how what the outcomes will look like. We don't know what this afternoon will look like. But what excites me about that is that opens up a whole world of possibilities, right? I mean, imagine all that we can do, all the decisions that we can make that can shift things and can create different scenarios and can help us, sort of like become because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we know what we can do today to try to make something happen, right? And that world of possibilities is super exciting to me. Dr. Ruanas, we're getting closer to the end of our chat, and I want to be mindful of your time, but I want to ask you this last question. Um, the title of the book, Bold Move, you talk about transforming anxiety into power. What does the power look like? What is, when you actually at the end of the journey, when you transformed your anxiety into power, what does the power mean? What does it look like?
It looks like what we're seeing right now. It looks like you. It looks like you're able to every day take steps towards the things that empower you, that give you a sense of joy, that gives a sense of belonging, right? In the end of the day, what we want to belong with others. We want to be present.
Yeah,
And so the reason I said transform anxiety into power is because anxiety is not the problem. We're so stuck that anxiety is bad.
yeah,
Anything that's meaningful in life comes with some level of anxiety, right? The really problem is avoidance. And
yeah.
so if you want to build a bold life, we need to fight the real enemy, avoidance. And that to me is transforming anxiety into power.
Love that. Dr. Luana, thank you so much for spending this time with me on Monday morning to have this amazing and empowering chat. I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming to the show. Everybody who's tuning in, thank you so much for being here. I hope you go and check out Bold Move by Dr. Luana. Just came out, right? I think you said it. I mean, today's May the 29th, by the way, if you're watching this in replay, but the book came out last week. So the pre to the last week in May. So please go and check it out. Go and get it because, well, you can tell how much it's going to empower you and help you out. So Dr. Rana, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much, Enrique. It was really, really a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. I will see you all soon in our next Hacking HR Live Chat series conversations or in any of the many things that we are doing in this community of Hacking HR. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you.